Good morning. My name is Dr. Felice Cellini, and this is our Why Wait for Recovery Sunday morning community meeting. And I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery.
Hi, good morning. My name's Haiti, and I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery. And we get together twice a week to discuss recovery, where you get it, what it looks like, and
Where you get it, where you buy it.
where you buy it. And we basically two friends in recovery, and this is our journey, our stories, our tools, our whatever works for us in discussion in our community. I'm a compulsive overeater. I'm an emotional eater. I'm a binge eater. I'm a purger. I'm a food addict. I'm a post-bariatric patient. And also I'm a drug addict in recovery.
Are you patient?
I'm not patient at all.
She's not patient. We'll talk about that later.
Like something we'll discuss later.
Exactly. I'm a drug addict, alcoholic, anorexic. So we pretty much have everybody covered. So good morning and welcome.
Yeah,
Should we say right off the bat today that we're not affiliated with AA or NA or OA or any of the A's? We all got clean there. Shout out to anyone and all of those groups, awesome groups. We're just not affiliated with them. We're just two girls chatting about our recovery on
and actually
telephone.
And some people actually got clean here.
And people got clean here.
Right. And what we did was we basically take things that worked for us and we mushed it all together into a recovery stew.
We mushed.
Yeah, exactly.
Recovery stew.
Recovery stew, because we discuss food addiction as well.
Yes, we discuss mostly food. Well, we discuss addiction and recovery.
Right, and it doesn't matter what you're picking up.
Yeah,
I mean, for
never
some of
matters.
us, we just pick up whatever it is just to change how we feel. You know, I'm not that clear-cut one type of addict. I just switch over until I just don't need to deal with myself or what I'm feeling.
So darn easy, isn't it?
I know, and we wear so many hats. You know, I wear that mom and that wife and that businesswoman and all these different things, and I have a million excuses to pick up if I want to.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think, can we do a quick go around?
Yes.
And I'll wake up.
Okay.
Happy Sunday morning. Should we do a go around? Do you want to say good morning?
Good morning. I'm Lou.
Good morning, Lou.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
anything to share this morning?
I'm blessed to be here.
Okay, and we're
And I
grateful
talked
that you are.
I did talk myself out of not coming.
Good. You didn't talk yourself out of coming. That's awesome.
Actually,
So
you
we're glad that
mentioned
you're here.
something that's really great. So we commend everyone who gets up to be here at 9 o'clock, because some of us are Eastern Standard Time, some of us are overseas and the different time changes in different states. And
Yeah, with Karen, it's early.
we are proud of you for stepping into your recovery and taking really necessary steps, because it takes work.
It takes work.
I'm Lucy,
Yes, you are.
and I'm grateful for the struggles I'm going through.
That's
Wow,
awesome.
that was an
Wow.
awesome thing to say. And as soon as you believe that, a whole lot of things are going to change for you. But that was a great
good
start.
start.
It really was.
And that's quite a shift, I must tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things have been happening. I'm coming to terms with a lot of stuff.
Okay, good.
Right.
Good. And so the more we come to terms with a lot of stuff, or the more that we meet life where it's at, right? Live life on life's terms and have all of that acceptance that we talk about, the less we pick up. Because as we know, it's never about the picking up, it's about the why. And the why is always because we're scared or we're lonely, right? It's actually, and we know all of our negative emotions are fear-based. And so as long as you're walking around with that fear, makes it a whole lot easier to use, which is what you've been doing.
And not only fear, resentment,
That's all fear.
insecurity.
It's all fear,
Okay.
right? Fear is I'm afraid of not getting what I want or losing what I have.
Perfect.
Okay, so that's what fear is. And so every one of those negative emotions have to do with I'm not going to get what I want or I'm going to lose what I have, right? So thank you so much. We haven't talked about that in a little bit, so thank you so much. We talk about acceptance, but we don't talk about what comes before our lack of acceptance, and that what comes before that is that fear. So thanks for bringing that up. We're going to talk about being pissed off and hangry later, and so that's a perfect segue. So thank you.
Spit it out.
Yeah, I'm doing my best here. I'm doing my best. Good morning.
Good morning, I'm Dawn. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic in recovery.
Yes, you are.
Very grateful to be here. I don't consider working my program work. It's a total pleasure for me because I'm so happy to be sober. blessed to have the luxury to work my program pretty hard because I don't have to work outside of the house, and so I have time. I have time to pursue different things that support my recovery, and I'm incredibly grateful for that because I love working my program.
And sometimes you fall back a little bit, right? Like we talked
Yeah,
about the last
emotionally.
couple of weeks
Yeah.
where you were
Yeah.
kind of like, ugh, I don't really want to have to do
Yes.
the things that I've decided that I have to do.
Well, that was around
Right.
food, but
Right.
otherwise, yeah.
Okay,
Otherwise.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But no, but I'm saying though, and so you have a great attitude about your recovery, so that's awesome. And sometimes it is hard to work our program, especially when we're looking at new things, right? And saying, okay, is this part of my addiction?
Yeah.
Because for sure, how I'm feeling isn't part of my recovery,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
What we talked about yesterday at
Yeah.
the workshop. So good for you. It's good to see you this morning. Thank you.
You know, that actually just reminds me of something. I was having a conversation with my youngest son, and when it was about homework, and he is in high school, and he doesn't want to do his homework. And I'm thinking, you know, when I was in school, you never really see the payoff until later once you finish. It's one of those like thankless jobs is going every single day, getting up early, going in, getting the work done. And there's very little feedback until when you can go to college and graduate, if that's what you do, and actually have like a career afterwards. And there are those days where you just don't, you know, and I'm the one who's encouraging him to sit down and just get it done, and attitude counts. And if you just sit down and make it easy, you know, think in your head that it's not that bad, it's not that bad. But I get that, you know, there's some days that it's easy working on my recovery, and there's some days it's like pulling teeth. And that's when I have that little committee in my head that starts wanting to sabotage where I'm at. And if I give in to those old thoughts, then it's really easy to get back into those old thoughts again. You know? So I get inspired by people who are inspired by what they're doing,
Right.
you know? I think it's awesome.
And we're gonna have some times too where we just don't want our eyes say that, you know, where I wake up sometimes in the morning and I'm like, I don't want to be in recovery today. Not that I want to use. I don't want to, you know, do my best to do my best, and I don't want to be grateful, and I don't want to. And then I think about why.
Yeah.
Like I want to be miserable, like the rest of the folks who are walking around miserable because they're not working on being happy, you know. But sometimes I do get in that funk where I think I don't feel like I just want to, you know, hide out in my room today and just not deal with anything that has to do with recovery. And then I need to remember that working on my recovery, which we do on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
That working on my recovery is something that I do because, as you say, maybe I'm not going to see the payoff this morning, but for sure in the long run, I see the payoff all the time. So
Last night we actually went to South Beach, and it's something that when it comes to a Saturday night, it's been a long week of work, and I'm exhausted, and in my head, I go, it's too far to drive, I don't want to go, I've been busy all week, and I have all these conversations, whereas on Saturday morning, I'm like, gung-ho, let's go do something Saturday night and go out and have fun, and by the end, when Saturday night comes, I just don't want to do anything. And when we actually got there, we had so much fun.
yeah.
It's funny how our heads start playing such a big role in these crazy little thoughts. Hey?
Yeah, all the stuff we make up, we're so amazing, right?
Yeah, we are.
That we have all that time to make up all that stuff. It's incredible. Ange, would you like to share this morning?
Oh,
Oh, well.
well, this week has been good. It's been okay. I don't know that I have anything to share for the week, but yesterday we had the workshop, and that was really good for me. Of course, I've done it a couple of times, and I've also done step work with you a lot of times. But it was good for me because I got to see that no matter how far along in my recovery I am, there's always going to be something I can take away and something I can work on and grow from, and so that was good for me.
Good. Thank you for sharing that.
So we have a workshop, just, you know, we get new people that join us as well. We have a workshop that is a small group workshop where we really get into recovery in depth, and it's a lot of work, but it's really a huge learning experience. I've done it a few times, and each time I do it, in each session, I learn something new. Yeah. And I come out, and I'm always amazed with the people that I'm surrounded by, how wise and just really amazing the people are, you know. So one of the things that I really learned through this whole process is sharing and talking, and I talk a lot. But in my head, you know, it's something I've learned over time, because before I never said anything. I used to be the quiet person who I could talk a lot of crap about anything else other than myself and what I was feeling. So we had these different conversations during our meetings. You can either join us in the room here in South Florida, or you can join us virtually in our virtual room, or you can live stream us on Facebook or on YouTube, or just share us around. So anyone who's struggling with addiction can really just join a meeting.
Yeah, you know, I find what we do a lot of in the workshop, I find that when we talk about our stuff, usually when we're relating with other people, we talk about things that are happening or things that have happened, but not the emotions that are attached to the things that are happening, right? So real quick example, let's say your kid moves out, let's say, right? People say, well, my son moved out and, you know, whatever. Instead of saying, I'm feeling sad because, or I'm feeling happy because my son moved out. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't talk about the feelings behind the event, we talk about events. And when we're sharing with other people, a lot of times we're talking about events, which means we're saying nothing, right? We're not saying anything that's gonna help us learn something about ourselves and why we feel the way that we're feeling. And I think that in the workshop, we get to, since we do talk about what's going on with us, which is the crux of why we're addicts in the first place, and we get those insights from others, not just the insight from one person that you're talking to, but from everybody. I think that that's so helpful, and as we learn more about ourselves, it makes it easier for us to stay in recovery, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also, I'm a master of diversion. So it's very easy for me because, you know, some things I don't know how to deal with. Emotions are one of those things I was never really taught, or never really gave myself that luxury of spending time with myself to understand what that looks like. So it's far easier just to shift away and divert to other people, or be really funny, or do all these other things other than really deal with those emotions. And some of them are really devastating when I'm going through them, because they're extremely painful, and I'm not quite sure how to sit in painful stuff. You know, I'm the addict, and
well, we weren't sure how to deal with it, right? We used.
Right, and that made
was
us
the
feel
sure
good.
way to
Like,
deal with it.
feeling
Yeah.
good is
We
something, I
Yeah.
thought feeling good was the answer to everything. Like everything, until it reached the stage where it wasn't feeling so good.
Right, right. Until we got to feel like crap about the fact that we were using. So now we have all of these problems, and on top of the fact that we have all of these problems that we've never dealt with, now we're in active addiction, which brings a whole lot of brand new stuff to the table.
And the interesting thing is, the further we run, there we still are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think, so especially, I think it reaches that stage, and for me it's very, food kind of epitomizes it, because no matter what I was doing, I was always left feeling empty. So it was always stuffing it, and food became a really easy answer to stuff those emotions, because at least I felt full in one way, even though it wasn't satisfying.
Right, right. Full and not satiated. Very good. We have to use that as a... Okay. Good morning, Karen. Thank you for joining us. You watching your grandbaby?
I am literally sitting with a sleeping baby, so I'm not going to say very much,
Okay.
but I have had the terrible experience of having to cuddle a baby all night long, and I think it's just awful.
Oh my God, I feel so bad for you.
Awesome.
But he's literally sleeping next to me, so I'm going to just listen, but I wanted to join everybody this morning and say good morning and just be a part of the meeting.
Well, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you for joining
Thank you.
us. Miss Laura, how are you today?
So I'm fine, but I've been thinking a lot about, because I'm in the workshop, and I've been thinking a lot about the concept of, your ego and how large it can be, or how large mine is. And it's been really interesting to think about that, and about how much it drives so much of my behavior.
So we talked yesterday, as we talk about a lot, that ego is what I believe your opinion of me is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that if I have no true feelings about myself or who I am, no sense
Right.
of self, then the only sense of self I have is reflected from somebody else. So if you think I'm awesome and I'm fabulous, then I must be awesome and fabulous, which means I'm going to show up and act a certain way no matter how I'm feeling. So I'm not being true to myself, I'm being full of shit. And you're seeing the full of shit part. And as long as I can sell it to you in a pretty good package, and I think that you think I'm fabulous, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I'm scared or sad or resentful or lonely or feel less than, or that doesn't matter because you think I'm great.
Right.
And that's a really lonely place to be. And it's one of the things that actually keeps us in active addiction, because we're lying to the outside world, and we need to lie to the outside world by lying to ourselves first. So if I show up and act fine, everything's going to be fine, that's me lying to me.
Right.
Right. And then we talk about honesty, which is, as we know, is most important. We got to get honest before we get clean. Got to get abstinent, then we got to get honest, or honest and abstinent at the same time, so that we could step into recovery. And it's a real important thing to think about, because really, my opinion of you doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is who you are and how you feel about you, and about you getting happy with you and you letting go of whatever demons are inside of you so that you can be happy. You can't be happy because I like you. You got to be happy because you like you.
Right.
Right? And so we say the only thing we need to do is show up and do our best to do our best, because if I'm doing my best and you don't like it, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm not doing my best and you like me and I think that's okay, that's my problem. So thanks for bringing that up.
So there's an acronym that EGO stands for Edging God Out, and as an addict, I'm spiritually broken. It's one of those things, and for some people it's higher power, whatever it is, and it puts me in that place where I think I've got control of everything, and that's part of my craziness when I get into that ego space. And I think I can control the whole world, and once I do that, that feeds into my craziness, and then it makes me even more miserable and more crazy and really in a bad place.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because when you talk about ego and you say, I think I can control the whole world, you think if you act a certain way, that the whole world will act accordingly.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. We ain't that important, right?
And then it also leads into those addictive behaviors, and that was one of the things, that hangry of what we chose as a topic, when I'm not looking after myself. And part of that is like making sure that I've eaten, that I'm not tired. Like there's a whole lot of things of that self-care, of being able to put myself first. And when I start getting that uncomfortable, one of the things that I do around me is if I'm feeling uncomfortable, I make it really uncomfortable for the people around me. So I start crapping on the kids and on my husband and being really mean and bitchy and short and all these things, because I'm just not in a good place, so the rest of the world must suffer. So I'll take it out on the teller or the checkout person or the person driving in the car next to me. They went in front of me in the light and they didn't say sorry. All these different things. And that becomes like that whole ego thing for me, that I become really this raving lunatic.
And miserable, and then you want, like you said, you want to share your misery with everybody else. And we do. The more I share my misery with the people I'm closest to, the more it allows me to isolate, right? And the more I isolate, whether I'm using or not, the more I isolate, for me, if I'm staying isolated, I'm working back toward active addiction, right? Because that's one of the things that we do when we're in active addiction, is to isolate ourselves.
And I gravitate back to that place of beating myself up. So I mean to you, so I feel terrible. And the more terrible I feel, sometimes that's a really comfortable place for me to be, because just being miserable is something I've been for so long that it's very familiar. And then I can justify what a bad person I was and why you didn't read my mind and divert everything back onto someone else, instead of stopping and turning around and going, well, what is my part in where I am today? Do I want to sit in this and wallow in this, or do I want to really shift where I am?
Yeah, and taking a look at ourselves and saying, what is eating us? What's eating you today? Right? What's hurting me? What am I afraid of today? Right? And once I can name that fear, how do I get out of that fear? Who do I reach out to, or what tools do I use, so that instead of using and instead of stepping into the chaos, which is what we're used to, or I could just go ahead and say, okay, this is how I feel. I recognize that feelings aren't facts. They're just feelings. They go away. We don't have to do anything about having a feeling. We don't have to isolate, right? We don't have to do any of those things that we chose to do in the past. This is a feeling, it too shall pass.
You know, one of my realizations when I first stepped into recovery was we stopped laughing as a family. We didn't do kooky, crazy things. We just kind of stopped laughing. Everything was so serious. Every single day was serious, and every single day was like a judgment day and the end of the world kind of day, and you didn't do this and why didn't you do that, and it just became such a miserable place to be.
Yeah, fear sucks.
It does.
It does. It sucks to be scared, you guys. It really does. And again, it's something that keeps us lonely and isolated, and does allow us to completely miss the movie. You know, when I'm walking around in fear, Lucy, we talked about yesterday where you said when Heidi's talking, at the workshop yesterday, you said when Heidi's talking, I'm already saying all these things. I'm listening to her and I'm saying all these things in my head and I'm thinking all these things. And I'm like, that's because you're not listening to her, right? You're completely missing the movie because you're so in your own head. You're so full of fear and so in your own head that you're not actually listening to what she says. And it's so recognizing that I'm sitting here in fear. What is it that I can do to let go of that fear? You guys, having faith doesn't mean that I wake up this morning and everything that I'm 1,000% sure that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. That's not the way it is. Everything is going to be. End of discussion. Everything's going to be. I don't really have power over any of that except for my perspective and my own actions. The world is turning the way that it's turning. I am certainly not powerful enough to change that. So everything's going to be. How I handle, how I look at, how I respect the fact that everything is going to be today and that I could look for happy no matter what's going on. That sometimes I'm going to be sad or angry or hurt or whatever, and that's okay too because I don't have to stay there forever. We don't have power over the universe, you guys. We have power over our perspective and our actions, and that's it. We could let go of the rest. And so as soon as we learn to let go of the rest, this is happening. If I'm petrified, you said yesterday you're selling your house. If I'm petrified about selling my house, at 5 o'clock today, it's 5 o'clock. If I'm having a good day and hanging out with friends, at 5 o'clock, it's going to be 5 o'clock. Your house is still going to get sold one day. The only difference is your journey through that day and how you were spiritually. Is having to sell your house scary? Yeah, it is. Do you have to stay in that scared day after day after day after? No. You can learn how to say, okay, this is what's happening. I'm going to let it go. And in the meantime, I'm going to do my best with all the other stuff that's going on in my life.
You know, it's interesting that you're saying that because there's so many different options. There's being scared, there's being happy, there's being joyful, there's all these different options, and the same thing with the food. So I think when it comes to the beginning of stepping into that whole process, it becomes, how do I give up bread? How do I give up rice? How do I give up all these things? But you forget that there are millions of other options. And I think when we are when we're actively using and we haven't stepped into recovery and we're kind of toying with the idea and not quite sure what it looks like, we don't realize that by using it almost creates like a see-through shield around us, that when people say things, it like bounces off because we're just not hearing it, because we're not ready to receive it or hear it, or we've got all this other stuff going on in our body, because addiction is a disease. It's not something we have power over, that we go, today I'm an addict, tomorrow I'm not, in 5 minutes I am, 10 minutes later I'm not. Something that we are. So it's almost like an allergic reaction, that when we put something in us, we just react and behave totally differently, and it starts a whole chain reaction of what that looks like. So when I was using, I knew what my days would look like. It was kind of already predetermined. So I'd get up, I'd have that determination, today I wouldn't do this. And by the end of the day, I'd done that, and then I'd feel like shit, and then I'd keep beating myself up, and I'd still feel like crap. And all of a sudden, stepping into recovery opens up the possibility of a surprise. Like, it opens up the ability of, let's see what unfolds, because I can let that stuff go. you know, I can't control it. It takes away a certain level of stress. Because when I was using, I was exhausted at the end of every single day. I was short-tempered. I was exhausted. I never had time for anyone, and I just really wasn't present in any moment.
Yeah, and so the abstinent part, getting abstinent, does allow us to have some time to step into recovery. And stepping into recovery, the better that we're doing in our recovery, the more that we do, the more that we are capable of looking at the day and saying, hey, you know, today is full of possibilities, right? And that I can choose to be grateful today, no matter what's going on. Or I can have a bad day, and that's okay, because it's a bad day, and that's okay.
Could I hit on some stuff that you
Sure.
said? Okay. You were surprised at what I said at the intro and stuff, but I wanted. You have to understand, some of the stuff that you said today were on point. Some of the stuff you said today were on point. Isolating, been very isolated, not grateful. Once I opened myself up to that stuff and to other people, things have been changing. I have a friend who I told her I was selling my house. She lives in New Jersey. She's an expert in cleaning out houses. She booked a flight that day to come here in 2 weeks to help me clear out my house of stuff that I don't need so I could be ready to pack. I have a cousin who said, oh, don't worry about packing. We'll have a packing party. All the cousins will come. We'll help you pack. See, I get the chills just thinking about it. I have another cousin who said, don't worry about selling your house. I'm going to be in Portland for 8 months. You can live in my house until you find something to live in. So it's like they're all coming around, you know, everybody's saying, you know, they know my stress. They know what I'm going through, my fears. And they're all coming to help.
And remember, when you're sitting by yourself and stuck and scared and not sharing, all of those things were there. You just weren't open to them.
That's right.
Right. Good
That's
for
right.
you. Good
And
for you.
And I think it's also that realization that we can be loved and people do love us, because for so long I didn't believe that I was worthy or deserved it, or that even asking for help was a possibility, because I always thought people were out for something. You know, I was brought up with this thing. People do something because they want something. And when I thought about it, what do they really want from me? My misery, my pain, my like all the shit that I carry in the baggage I carry as an addict. Like, not a great package to take stuff. But I think when we open that up, people are surprising and are actually quite remarkable and very generous.
And we talked about too, you know, because you've said it before. I know that you've said it before. I've said it before. A lot of us think, especially women, well, no, maybe men too. I don't know. I'm just not a guy. That asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Oh, yes. That's
when in
me.
fact, asking for help opens up the door and allows other people to come into your life a little bit, to share, to see that you're vulnerable, to be, you know, people like to be of service. People like to help other people. You do allow people to step in, and actually they get to feel good because they get to be of service as well. But as long as you're home and sick and scared and isolating and alone, you don't give anybody that chance, nor do you give yourself that chance to get well.
You know, and I think we forget that as human beings, we connect on a heart-to-heart basis. It's what endears us to each other. And when we let down those guards, not only do we make ourselves more accessible and people get to know us, but we also get to know them on a different level. And I think that's what it really is community. Sorry, we had a breaker.
Cat from
I'm
hell
going
is
to just
here.
get rid of the head. We had a cat that
No, I'm allergic. I won't be able to handle it.
I'm going to take it.
Okay, bye with the cat. Yeah, and so you allowed some people in. You feel better. They're going to feel good about helping you. And so all of that time that you spent stuck in fear, right? Where you said, oh, I had 7 days and I was abstinent and then I used, and this last month or whatever, where you've just been running on fear, you haven't allowed life to happen, right? You've just been stuck and sick and scared.
Right.
Yeah. So good for you that you open that up, so that you open up the opportunity to allow the universe in, right? And to allow for change. And maybe you would have reached out, and at that moment, somebody wouldn't have reached out back. But at least you opened up that opportunity for others. Because as long as the opportunity ain't open, nothing's changing, right? So good for you. Good for you.
Can
Yes.
I read your question?
Please.
Angelia says, I'm working on asking for help more now. I'm always afraid they won't be there for me. They won't want to help. I don't want them to say no.
Okay, well, why don't you want them to say no? So we need to talk about this. So remember, if you ask me for help and I say no, there could be a lot of reasons for me saying no, right? If you take it personally, like you ask me for help and I say I can't because I'm busy or whatever, you're hearing that you're not important enough for me to help you. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm busy, or I have something to do that day, or I have a, when you open yourself and you ask with the expectation of somebody coming back with a certain thing, you set yourself up for a disappointment. When you open yourself up just because you're opening yourself up to the universe and you're allowing for some change, that's different. And so remember, to give without the expectation of receiving back is true giving. To ask without the expectation of you saying yes is me letting myself be open to the universe.
I love it that you're saying that. Sorry. So altruism is really like egotistic, okay?
Oh.
But yes, it is. That's when there can be that very fine line where you want to do things where you're always looking good to others.
That can be. That is
Right.
that the definition of altruism? Because altruism is to give, and not to receive, isn't it?
Yes, but we tell ourselves that we're being altruistic.
Fair enough. Fair
okay?
enough. That's
and
different.
then
That's
it
different.
really isn't, because the end goal is when we really want to look good to others and
Right.
also divert from actually
Fake
taking
altruism.
right, and it's diverting from us actually really looking at ourselves because we're such good people.
We're so amazing that we're doing all these fabulous things for others. And let's post it on Facebook, by the way, how great I am and how many things I did for you today, right? So that you could all post back and pat me on the back, right? You know, they say do things like nobody's watching you except for God, right?
Yeah, but that's really hard
Right?
today with social media, okay? Because the whole thing is you have to be watched and get
It's
as
not on
many likes,
Facebook.
because
I don't do-
how
I
can
don't do it
people
anymore.
like you if you don't have enough
No,
likes?
I took down Facebook. I don't do Facebook anymore.
That's okay.
You know, I don't want to have to deal with how many people I'm friends with on
And
Facebook.
that's okay. And that's okay. That's all good. We all look at that differently, right?
know.
We look at Facebook as a way to share with a community. People do whatever they do on Facebook, their opinions, their this, their whatever. That's a personal thing to everybody.
So vicious on
But
Facebook.
sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But point being that if we're doing it and we're posting it so everybody can see how fabulous we are, then we are talking about our ego. We're not talking about doing our best to do our best so that we know that we're doing our best to do our best. It's so
Right.
you know I'm doing my best to do my best.
And I see some people doing like really extreme things where they really hurt themselves. So people can just say, wow, that was ridiculous or unbelievable. And I cringe and I feel so bad for them. You know, I think there were so many times that I really hurt myself badly in active addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about it and I'm actually horrified of some of the stuff that I actually did. I mean, I can't change it, it's in the past and it's
Right.
made me who I am today.
Right.
And I wouldn't be on this journey without it. But I did some crazy messed up things, you know, and not to other people as much as I did them to myself.
Yeah, and I think for me, worst part in active addiction, no matter what I was doing to somebody else, was that spiritually what I was doing to myself was, I mean, I would never treat my next door neighbor's dead dog like that. You know what I mean? The way that I treated myself. I would never, you know, really think about what we did to ourselves spiritually and how tough we were on ourselves and how much we hated ourselves and how much we lied and how much we, and when I say steal, I don't mean that, you know, that we stole money, but that emotionally and spiritually from others, and how much damage we did to our relationships and how we would never ever treat anybody like that. But we definitely treated ourselves like that. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? The more spiritually broken I became, the more entitled I felt.
Well, so that's ego again,
Right,
right?
so
On the
that's ego.
outside, right?
So I felt that someone else should fix it. Like my husband should read my mind and know exactly what I wanted and why aren't you doing the things. If you only did what I told you to do,
In
or
the first place.
everything would be okay. And if I lost 100 pounds, I'd feel great and I'd feel amazing and all these ifs and ifs. And it was really from that place of not wanting to do any work or even just take a look at myself.
Yeah.
Isn't that quite horrifying? I mean, that we are who we are, and we've got one chance of being in this body, in this world, in this time, and we spend so much time running away from ourselves instead of taking the time to be able to say, this is quite extraordinary. You know, all the things that happen to put me in the space and time and make me who I am, make me quite exceptional in terms of just being a creature of this earth and just being here today and connecting with you in the room and having this experience instead of going into that lonely, crazy black hole in my head.
That doesn't allow us to be of service.
Or happy.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I love that. Fix the problem, not the blame. Fix the problem.
Yeah, but blaming is so much easier. You know, today we can get stuff fixed. You just pay for it and it's fixed, okay?
Okay, but that's not fixing the blame. That's fixing the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Right? So we could fix the problem. Fixing the blame as far as, you know, it's your fault because I'm unhappy. No, it ain't. It's my fault
But
that
then
I'm
you've got to
unhappy.
be responsible to
Yes,
fix
you
it.
do.
And
Yes,
then you
you
can't
do.
be a victim. And
Yeah.
it's so much easier
Uh-oh.
being a victim. Okay.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Easy, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy to do it, but that's what keeps us stuck in that misery and that discontent. Is
Yeah.
doing what we've always done.
Yeah. Yeah, to say, oh, poor me.
But, you know, I think the challenge becomes that we do what we've always done because that's what we've known and for whatever reason it is. But sometimes we don't know what that step forward looks like. You know, how do I shift it? How do I change it? All I know is something is really wrong. You know, and part of that, that's one of the reasons we started doing what we're doing is, you know, once we start talking about it and you get the tools, you go, you know, this makes sense. Yes, service helps, gratitude helps, but also doing the work to be able to understand it really starts the journey to do something different.
And when we talk about honesty, a lot of times the reason why in the beginning it's hard to get honest is because if I am honest, and I do when I say put it out there, I mean put it out there in the universe, not put it out there to you. Now I've put myself in the position where I'm not a victim. So I don't get to sit with my victim suit on. So now I've discovered what some of the challenges are. Now I actually do have that choice. Do I want to get well or do I want to stay stuck and sick and scared? Now it's my choice. That's a problem because before I could say that I didn't have that choice. This is my life and it's so miserable and it's so horrible and all of these horrible people that are around and nobody cares and nobody loves me and nobody wants to help me. And if I sit there, I don't need to change nothing. If I say, oh, the challenge is with me and the way that I'm looking at the world, and now I have a choice to change the way I'm looking at the world, I got to change the way I'm looking at the world if I want something to change, right?
You know, something interesting came up in the workshop yesterday. You know, bad things happen.
Yeah, sure they do.
You know, a lot of people, addicts have been sexually abused or whatever the story is. Bad things happen, but we then reach a stage where it's a choice of what we want this to look like in the future.
Correct. What we want to do with that. The event is done. Events happen and events are done. Your parents die. Somebody got into a car accident. Somebody got hurt. Somebody lost their house. Somebody lost their leg. You know, those things happen. What do we want to attach to that? What do we want to learn from it? Do we have to go through the scared and the, of course we do. Do we have to go through sadness? Of course we do. We're human beings. Do we have to stay stuck there forever? I'm going to tell you that we don't. We don't have to stay stuck there forever.
You know, one of the things that drives me crazy is that saying bad things happen to good people.
Of course they do. Bad things happen to all people. Right.
Okay, and they just
And
happen.
good or bad is a judgment that's really not for us to say, by the way.
Right.
That's a universe thing.
Right. So then I think it also becomes, well, karma is the other side of it. And sometimes just whatever's going to happen, we don't have that control. And I think part of being in recovery is learning that whatever happens doesn't really matter in the greater scheme of things.
It matters, but we can't control it.
Right. But I'm saying it doesn't matter in terms of you'll deal with it as soon as you get there. Because part of me, when I was in active addiction, was projecting into the future. So I could sit in fear and really stay stuck where I am. So I was always looking if this happens tomorrow, if this happens next week or next year or next month or next century, whatever it is. I remember Y2K. When Y2K was going to happen and all the computers were going to blow up and the world was going to come to an end and all this kind of stuff. It was great for New Year's party costumes, okay? Like we're looking like, what do we do and dress up for New Year's Eve, okay? We'd go as Y2K. But it was all this fear stuff based around it. And then January 1st arrived, okay, and everything was still okay. Like everything just was okay. So no matter how much we worried before then, things just worked out the way that they did.
I was watching I think it was a repeat of Grey's Anatomy the other day. Yes, I have a challenge. And she said, I can't fix a problem until there's a problem to fix. Is there a problem? So even with the Y2K, again, remember, we plan for the future, but we live in today. If I'm living in the future and everything that I'm doing and thinking about is for the future, I've missed my life. So if planning for Y2K meant doing something to your computer or whatever, then you do something to your computer or your bank accounts or whatever you're going to do and live your life that day.
Or in our case, we get our kids to do something to the computer.
Right, some of us
I have my geek too. He lives in Tampa.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we take on other people's chaos. Something happens in the news and everybody's watching the news, and then you're calling 63 of your friends because somebody killed a baby seal in Alaska, and that's a horrible thing that happened. And it is a horrible thing that happened. You want to talk about it for a month? Because my thing is, if you want to help, send some money to save the seals or something like that. Be proactive. You want to sit and talk about what's happening in everybody else's misery? Why?
Because it's fun making up stories.
Okay.
We can make up like a million scenarios of why we think someone did something or acted this way or said something. And it's just so much easier making up these stories and glorifying them or dramatizing them or whatever it is, because it makes me feel important when I'm doing that and knowledgeable and smart.
And you also do miss the movie. You're completely missing your life holding on to somebody else's chaos that's happening out in the world that doesn't have nothing to do with you, that you're not doing anything to change anyway.
But it's amazing how those stories become truths in my head. So I come up with these scenarios and all of a sudden it's an absolute true thing, and and I will stand and defend it to the death.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah, and it's got nothing to do with you.
So stepping back into recovery and letting go of the chaos.
What this is about?
So there are a couple of things. One is we always speaking of service, and I think part of it, part of it is the things that we do in terms of picking up stuff and sticking it into our system, however it gets in, that is bad for us when we're in active addiction, and putting that stuff down and just stopping doing that. That's a non-negotiable, because recovery doesn't work if you're using.
If you're not abstinent, correct.
Right. The other thing is, because we've been sitting in our heads for so long, we weren't addicts overnight. I wasn't an addict today and decided tomorrow I'm stepping into recovery. It took me years and years, and for me it took me a long time. Some people get there sooner. Other people get there earlier. You get there when you get there, but it's not usually an overnight process that we go, I'm an addict today, okay? So it's something I've been thinking a certain way for so long. I have to untrain or retrain my thinking and learn how to make better choices, and part of that is program. And part of that is being with other people and being in community, because the easiest and most comfortable place for me to be and the unhealthiest place for me to be is on my own.
You're correct.
So we have a couple of ways of communicating with each other. One is we have a closed community Facebook page, which is called What's Eating You. It's only taken me, a year to find the name.
You did a good job. Good job.
The other is we text people, we call people, we have conversations face to face with people. But the big thing is really getting out and talking. And then the other thing is we also learn. We put ourselves in situations where we learn, and we have workshops, and there are different tools out there. We are going to start a new workshop starting next month. It's going to be a short 1-day recovery workshop, just a quick synopsis.
It's kind of like a recovery mastermind, you know, so we could see where we're at, see where we want to go, and see what we're willing to do to get there. Because everybody talks about how much they want to be in recovery, right? I wanted to be in recovery for a really long time. I just wasn't. And how much we need to be in recovery, which all of us need to be in recovery if we're in active addiction. And I talked about that a really long time, but I wasn't. So this will be kind of a mastermind with us and with each other like-minded people, to find out, am I really an addict?
Right.
And if I am, do I want to change? Am I ready to change? And if I do want to change and I am ready to change, what does it look like to step into that part of this change so that I can be happy?
So the other thing is service, 100%. And we're going to post that online. But, I've got ADD. It's like one of those things. No, it's just, I've got the thought and it's going to disappear. I've got to get it out. So the other thing is being of service. For me, being of service every single day is really important in my world. And it's just, for me, it's important, not for anyone else. A lot of the things I do, I don't tell anyone about. It just makes me feel good. So it's just, being of service in whatever way it looks like, opening up the door for someone, saying something nice to someone that makes them feel good because no one's spoken to them all day, or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Your heart will guide you into what it is that you can do. We also, so if there's anything that you do to be of service, post it on our Facebook page, because sometimes people want ideas of things that they can do, and sometimes it's overwhelming because I get overwhelmed really easily. And the other thing that I was thinking about that I want to set out there as a challenge is, as a food addict, I sometimes struggle because I had bariatric surgery, so my stomach's like this big. So come to the weekend and doing things with my husband, I don't want to do the things I used to do, because if I do, I'll land up in the same place I did before, which is going to restaurants. And I don't want to start going to bars because it's very easy for me to switch addictions. So post ideas of things that you do that don't revolve around food or whatever your addiction is, that you have fun doing, because I would love to know what those other options are.
Very good.
That is good.
So share some of your happy spaces with others, so that they have some ideas. Good suggestion about suggestions.
Any other suggestions?
I have no idea what time it is this morning. What time is it this morning?
10 to
13 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh, it says it right there on the computer. Okay. Did we have anything else online?
Does anyone else want to check in? Because I know I talk a lot. So
Denise, good morning.
Hello.
How are you? What's up, girlie?
Just another day. I gotta text from Angelique to come to the meeting because I was sidetracked doing so many other things. So thank you for
We're glad that you're here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're glad that you're here.
Yes.
Yes. How are you doing?
Okay.
You doing okay?
the thing of what you said, being sidetracked, is really interesting, because I used to look for all reasons not to go to meetings. It was very easy in the beginning not to go to a meeting because there's so many other things
We don't
to
wanna.
do. Yeah, I
right,
don't
'cause
want
we
to
don't
sometimes.
wanna.
But the amazing thing is, once I step into a meeting, the shift that happens, and just spending that time focusing on myself, because it's one of those things I plan to do. Like I plan to journal and I plan to do all these things. I've got a to-do list that is pages and pages and pages long. But this is one of those things that when we sit here, we're actually doing something and we're learning.
Right, and doing something for our recovery.
So tell me about Hangry. There was a reason why you brought it up.
I don't know, why did we bring up Hangry this morning?
We didn't even talk about it.
We were talking about, so they say in the room, right, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, right? And so those four things are things that we're supposed to watch. We're hungry, we're walking around hungry, could be spiritually hungry for us anorexics, because we don't get hungry, but
For me
and
as a
even for
binger,
drug addicts, right,
it's
for
all about the
bingers,
food.
actual hunger, that's not there. Angry, we all understand what that means. It means that we're scared about something. Lonely and isolating, and tired, meaning we're not giving ourselves enough self-care.
You know, the thing with a hungry though, as a food addict, is that obsession of mine. So when I get into that food space and I let myself get hungry, I start obsessing about the next meal, and I didn't pack it, and what am I going to eat, and I'm starving and I'm checking out, let me grab this at the checkout, rather than, you know, it becomes like the whole focus on my day. So if
Gee, that sounds like active addiction to me.
So it becomes like this, almost like the train without brakes on it. You know, it just keeps speeding up, and it becomes the day's disappeared. And it started off with me missing a meal, or not planning ahead, or not doing something to look after myself. And for me, food is definitely a trigger in my world because it's one of my addictions.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, you know, when you talk about I've missed a meal and now I'm hungry and now I'm back into that headspace, it's not even just that you're thinking about your next meal and what you're going to get at the checkout. It's that you do it, and then you get to spend the rest of the day not only thinking about what's going to happen next, but feeling like crap about yourself because of what you already did. So now you're in that snowball thing. Now I'm going to think about, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I hate myself. I hate myself. I hate myself. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I'm afraid. It's so much fun. And then we do it again the next day.
Yeah,
it's
and
so
then
awesome.
And it also starts with a justification. So I missed breakfast, let's say, and then I go, well, I haven't eaten today, so I have to eat more, and I have to do this, and I have to, and it becomes that whole justification of craziness, and the little voices in the head start chiming in, and
it was
the
just breakfast.
And it was just breakfast.
Yeah.
And then it's that panic of,
Well,
shit, I
Just
don't.
breakfast to you, you know.
For some of us,
For
it's
some
an
of us,
event.
breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
I don't know who said that. Go ahead.
Question. I just wanna, like, I feel, I'm listening to you and I know what you're saying is true, but I don't, like, I'm just gonna say it. I don't want people to feel like that when you're in recovery, you still have that nonstop. That's like, I know that's not exactly what you're saying, but just to clarify, like, it doesn't always stay like that. And I know you're saying once in a while when that happens, you might slip back into that. Right?
Yeah, and I think that we're talking about inactive addiction. Is
Yeah,
that
I'm
what
talking
you're
about inactive addiction.
No, I took that as now and
Yeah,
No,
Okay.
but it's a
Thank
very
you for
fine,
clarifying.
and it's a very fine line, because relapse happens way before we start picking up. So the thing is, if I start doing the things that I was doing before, it's very easy for my head to go back into that space. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so right, and a lot of times what happens when we're not in active addiction and we're not actually picking up, we still have those same thoughts, right? Doesn't mean that we'll pick up, but at times we'll have those thoughts. Do we have those thoughts every day? No. Do we have the obsession and the compulsion? No. Once in a while, do we slip back into that thinking? Yeah, once in a while we do, and then hopefully that changes pretty quick that
And
day.
it may not be carried out to the same length as before.
No, absolutely. And if we're in recovery, it's not going to be carried out at all.
Right.
Even when the
No,
thoughts
I mean
do
the
slip
thought.
in there.
The thought may not slip that far. You may not slip that far into the thought.
Correct. Hopefully you won't.
Right.
So that's the difference between being abstinent and actually having some recovery.
And it doesn't stop the fantasies. You know, that's a crazy thing, is I still have using fantasies. I woke up, I've got a bit like a hole in my cheek, because I know it's chewing in my sleep. You know, it's like the crazy thing. So we think that we step into recovery, everything's okay, and we got recovery and we got this nail, but it doesn't stop my head going into those places where I romanticize using, of all those good times and fantastic things I did and all these amazing things, until I play that whole tape through. And then I know what it looked like, what brought me into.
Yeah, what it looked like when we woke up in the morning, right?
Right.
Hating
Playing the tape
ourselves.
through is really important, because, I mean, also, when I think about stepping into recovery this time, because I tried for several years, but this time I was at the point where I felt like the way that I felt, the way that I kept myself stuck in that kind of thinking that you were talking about, Felice, a little while ago, about, you know, just being miserable and nobody loves me and I'll never do anything, and I'm so tired of feeling this way, and blah, 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 blah. I just decided that I don't want to live if this is how I'm going to feel. And so I'm either going to die or I'm going to try to change it. And somehow I had this friggin' psychic change happened, which I've spoken about before, and it just changed my way of thinking about everything. I looked at where I was and what I was running away from. And what I was running away from, most people would give their right arm for. And I was running to this place of just, misery and despair and poverty. Like, what the hell, Anyway, as long as I remember that I would rather die than feel the way I felt, it helps to keep my head in the right place about staying in recovery.
Yeah, and so, they say, I think it's in the big book, right? We stood at the turning point. And so when we stand at that turning point and we say, again, what am I willing to do to not want to die today? Because I've been there as well. So what am I willing to do? What am I willing to choose, right? Because now I'm desperate. What is it that I'm willing to change, and how far will I go to make that change? No matter how much it costs time-wise or cash-wise or, life-wise, no matter what that cost is, how much am I willing to put in my recovery? Because I put F tons into my addiction, loads of it. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of self-loathing on my addiction when I was in active addiction. And then isn't it amazing? They say, when we're in recovery, we only have to change one thing, you guys, and that's everything, right? And so we have to change everything about our actions, but also everything about our perspective. And you're right, we choose every day, even though we don't realize it, we're choosing in active addiction this life of misery. And we're actually choosing it every day that we decide to pick up. We choose to hate ourselves and to hurt ourselves and to live in fear, and to hate ourselves and hurt ourselves and live in fear, as opposed to work on ourselves so that we could get well, so that we could be of service to ourselves and others.
And it's funny because I used to think that surrendering to a higher power or whatever, that was going to be so much work and that was so much easier to be in this misery. But when I surrendered, I felt the hugest feeling of relief. It was like, oh my God, I don't have to carry that shit around anymore. It was like, what took me so long? What took me so long to realize how much easier it is and how much sweeter it is. Oh my God, I just can't even believe how long it took me, but I'm so grateful that I finally gave it up. I gave up the fight.
Gave up the misery. And isn't that amazing that it takes us that long to give up the misery? And then some of us relapse. I mean, I had 7 years of not so much misery. Actually, I had 7 years of some absolute greatness, and then gave that up. For what? Like, what happens in our heads? What happens in our heads is we move away from community. We stop doing the stuff that we were willing to do. I'm going to say, they say in the rooms, a grateful, I believe that a grateful addict, an addict in recovery who is grateful for their recovery. Meaning every day I wake up in the morning and I say, thank you, universe, for allowing me, or for me allowing me, to stay in recovery. So gratitude about your recovery, that's going to keep you in recovery.
And I think that thought of what are you willing to do? So all the people who are commenting on Facebook, my challenge to you is step into the virtual room. No one can see you there, but join the conversation. It's really different when we hear things coming out of our mouths as opposed to writing it down. You're amongst friends, and that's my challenge for you for Thursday. I do have a question because we've got a minute left.
Sure.
Sunday is Mother's Day. We are mothers. Are we having a meeting on Sunday?
I don't know, but maybe we should post that online.
So if you want to have a meeting, if you're going to show up, we will definitely show up. Just post yes, give us a thumbs up, let us know that you want to have it. We'll discuss it on Thursday and give you an update.
Can we put up a poll?
Yeah, we can put up a poll. Actually, we'll put a poll into Facebook or just IM us or text us. The other thing is we have a meeting Thursday at 7 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time.
and we just about out of time. So if you want to,
Oh, so where are the promises? I'm gonna read the promises from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous because they're awesome. Yes.
just before you do, I just want to say thank you to everyone who shared and for everyone who showed up and who makes this possible. Thanks, Angelique.
Thank you, Ange. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that the universe does for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We don't think so. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, but they always materialize if we work for them. My name is Felice Cellini, and I'm so grateful for every one of you. Thank you for being a part of my recovery and helping me to stay in recovery. This is our Sunday morning Why Wait for Recovery community meeting.
And my name's Heidi, and I'm so blessed and grateful for all of you. If no one's told you today that they love you, I love you. See you on Thursday. Have a beautiful week. And
Peace out.
Peace
Recovery's
out.
awesome, you guys. Thank you, Angel.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
bye.
Laura.